Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabrielle and I'm a tax manager at one of the big four accounting firms. And once a week, I like to post videos on topics such as personal finance, career, and work-life balance. So if those are things that interest you, feel free to subscribe down below and hit the like button because that would really help me out. So today I'm going to be covering a topic related to career, more specifically, why I chose a career in tax. For those of you who are planning to pursue a career in accounting or planning to get your CPA, you may be more familiar with the path of an auditor, which is fair given that it is a huge part of public practice firms and of accounting in general. But lately, in the past, I would say around 10 years, tax has been a huge part of accounting and is growing year by year. Even when I first started with the firm in 2014, the program that I first started off in, which was direct to tax program, had only been running for a couple of years. Because in the past, what usually happened was you would first go into audit and get your designation that way. And then after your second or third year at the firm, they let you transfer into tax if that's something that you were interested in. To back up a little bit, when I was first applying for jobs when I was in university, I actually thought that I wanted to go into auditing, because I, to be honest, didn't know any better and I didn't know what sort of options were out there. But luckily, I had the chance to do a lot of networking and I had a chance to talk to a lot of people. And there was one person in particular at the firm that I actually currently work in. She was able to really open up my eyes to what a career in tax would look like and what the main differences of working in tax is compared to working in audit. After having that conversation with her, I have to say it really changed my perspective about what people in tax do, and that actually became my ultimate reason as to why I chose a career in tax. So to give you a little bit of background on what you do in tax, there are two main components. There is the retrospective component and there's a prospective component. And what I mean by this is, by retrospective, you are sort of looking at the past performance of a company or individual and applying what they should be paying in taxes or what they should be getting in refunds. This is mostly the tax compliance, the tax return aspect of a tax accountant. And of course, in order to be able to calculate these taxes, you need to understand what the tax laws are. Specifically here in Canada, it's called the Income Tax Act. And I find what's really interesting about my job as a tax accountant is that you will actually tend to meet a lot of tax lawyers in the industry that you work in a lot of networking and professional settings, specifically tax lawyers who also help their clients with tax planning or even litigations in court. So you do not just happen to meet other accountants, but you actually get to meet lawyers as well, which I think is pretty interesting. Now, the prospective part of the job, which I personally think is the fun part, is the tax consulting bit. And what sort of tax consulting might you do, you might wonder. In this case, the clients actually come to us to ask for advice on how to efficiently plan their businesses or structure businesses in order to minimize, not evade, taxes. And this is one of the many components on how a business does well. For example, businesses that don't plan ahead or not very organized, they have a lot of costs sort of flowing out the back end. And one of those costs that you could sort of plan ahead and somewhat control are taxes. And for big businesses, this could mean, thousands to even up to millions of dollars. As for more individual tax planning, the types of people that we kind of have as clients in our firm are more high net worth clients, and certain tools such as RSP deductions, capital gain exemptions, principal residence exemptions, first-time home buyer credits, all these are tools that you could use in your tax return in order to possibly reduce your taxes and not pay more than you really have to. At the end of the day, the more tax law that you know, the more tools you have in your pocket to creatively plan for certain structures or options to give to your clients to really let them know what their situation is, what their tax position is, so that they could, see for themselves how much you're helping them in terms of saving a certain amount of money and really helping them plan ahead. Also, a career in tax is not just limited to one certain path. There are actually a lot of specializations out there, even within tax. I'm doing more corporate Canadian tax, trying to go more into US tax and international tax. But there are also other types of tax, such as transfer pricing, there's private client services, there's mining tax, there's SHRED, which is scientific research and experimental development claims. There's also technology and media. There's also indirect tax, which is like PST, GST, HST, and there's also customs tax. So as you can see, there is an endless list of careers in tax you could choose from, depending on what your interests are and what sort of industry you want to go into. I guess for me, the main reason that I wanted to go into tax, and I don't want to oversimplify or anything, but the most appealing part for me was the ability to give more concrete value to the client. For example, I'm using my knowledge and my skills of applying the tax laws and applying that to the client situation, and then advising the clients that they're able to save X amount of dollars if they're able to follow our advice. And that's something that the clients really see value in, the fact that there is a tangible number that they could grasp and that they actively seek to come to us to pay and get such advice. Now, on the flip side, in comparison, audit mainly focuses on the past. An auditor's main role, I guess, is to verify that the financial statements are reasonable and somewhat reliable for key stakeholders such as lenders and investors. You also need to have an understanding of generally accepted principles or guidelines such as GAAP, IFRS, ASPE, in order to conduct your audits. And so that is, I guess, the compliance bit. But also at the same time, you might be spending the first couple of your years just focusing on certain items on the financial statements, such as inventory. And I have heard of cases where people had to work on New Year's Eve to actually go out to the client sites to do the inventory counts. So these are the sort of the types of work that you might be doing. And because you're following these guidelines and your goal is to ensure that the financial statements is, reasonable, based on these guidelines, there's not much room to be really creative. And so I heard that oftentimes the work could be pretty manual because you're just vouching for bank confirmations in the tens or hundreds. There is not much room to really explore and be creative with the knowledge that you have. And because of the nature of your role as an auditor, you're oftentimes expected to be at the client site, and that may or may not be ideal for you depending on your personality. For example, you're always on the go. You need to have everything with you. You may be switching from city to city. You might be going on business trips. You might be going to super rural areas that you might not necessarily want to go to. And all this go might be a little bit tiring for someone who's a little bit more of an introvert. Personally, for me, I like to have my own desk and a setup that I could, go to every day. Once in a while, go to client sites. But for me, I definitely knew that I did not always want to be on the go. So that might be something to consider. Just as a disclaimer, I've never really done a rotation in audit, so I can't really say for sure what a day in a life of an auditor really looks like or what their roles are. I mean, there are a lot of people out there who love their job, but for me, after hearing that was something to consider because that's sort of not the career path that I want to go. And so I really recommend for you to, meet a lot of people, network, get a different, sides of the stories, get people's actual experiences, and decide for yourself whether that's something you want to pursue. Anyways, I hope my video was helpful for you and you were able to get some insight into what the careers in audit and tax is like and why I chose tax. If you guys did find it helpful, it would really mean a lot to me if you guys could subscribe for weekly videos, as well as hit that like button because it would really help me out. If you guys have any questions or any suggestions for next videos, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below and I'll make sure that I will address it in future videos. Hope you guys are doing well and I'll see you guys next week. Bye!